Recording number 3, we're going to start talking about problems with memory. Do we have problems sometimes with memory? Yeah, we sometimes have problems with memory, and Madison, you're going to be nice enough to help me demonstrate some of the problems that we might have with a memory-based system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 words. Just look at the words, don't say them out loud, and then after I show you the 3 words, I'm going to turn the card over and there's going to be a number. And what I would like you to start doing is say that number and then start counting backwards by 3s. So if I give you 9, you'd say 9, 6, 3, and 0. And then after doing that for a few moments of time, I'm going to ask you to recall the 3 items on the front side of the card. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. And do we expect that your memory might not do so well after a little bit of time? Does that mean you're a bad person? No, we're just demonstrating cognitive psychology phenomenon. Are you ready to go then? Yep. Okay, so I gotta have my watch on here just a little bit. Don't look at anything over there yet. Okay, so don't say the words on the front side of the card, but I'll show you the words and you say yes, just that you've seen them. And then as soon as you see them, I'll turn it over and say the number on the back side and then start counting backwards by 3s. And if you make a mistake, don't even worry about it. Just kind of keep doing it. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it?
Yep. 985.
Keep going.
Did you want by 3s?
By 3s.
982, 979, 976, 973, 970.
What were the words?
It was banker, lawyer, plumber.
Okay, very good. Okay, ready for the second one? Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it? Mm-hmm. Okay.
99, 96, 93, 90. It's 87, 84, 80.
What were the words?
Fisherman, accountant. I want to say, oh God, I can't remember the last one.
Okay, that's all right. Let's keep going. Ready? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Got it?
Mm-hmm. 139, 136, 133, 130, 127, 124, 121.
Okay, what were the words?
Mechanic, stylist, and driver.
Okay. Let's keep going. Ready for the next one? Mm-hmm. Got it?
Mm-hmm. 742, 739, 736, 733, 730, 729, 726, 723.
What were the words?
Gymnast.
Okay,
No.
good. Okay, ready for the last trial?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're having so much fun with this,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Okay. 33, 30. It's going to be 27, 24, 21.
What were the words?
Peach, apple, grape.
Okay, let's give Madison a hand for participating. Okay, so let's go over the method to the madness here. And Madison, thank you very much for doing that. Do you think Madison did what we wanted her to do here? Do you think that was? So the method. What was the method to the madness? Method, result, and meaning is what we talk about here. The method was what? The participant is given?
3 words.
3 words. Now, did given 3 words, and then the first few trials, so 3 words, and then after they're given the 3 words, what are they asked to do? What were you asked to do, Madison? That was just so much fun for you?
Look at a number and count backwards by 3s.
Say it out loud backwards by 3s, and then at the end of that, you're asked to do what?
Repeat the 3 words.
Repeat the 3 words. So we know the method. Lily, what do you think should happen? And actually, let me even ask Madison, because you were looking at the words. In those first few trials, What do you think should have happened in those first few trials? You actually showed it.
That you were supposed to do well, that you were supposed to be able to remember the words.
Remember the words on kind of trial 1 and 2, but then what should happen as the trials go on?
It was going to be harder to remember the words.
It was going to be harder to remember the words, is what we actually have there. And then on the very last trial,
It was the hardest.
but was it the hardest on the very last trial?
Well, no, because the words were kind of different compared to the other previous.
So on the very last trial, the words were kind of a different category. That's almost a methodology thing. They were in a different category. This is almost method, because on the first 4 trials, everything that you looked at for those words came from what categories?
They were jobs.
They're kind of jobs. I was watching the movie last night, What Women Want, and stylist kind of came to my mind because somebody in there was a stylist, I think. So anyway, they were all in the same category. On the final trial, the words were what?
Fruit.
They were fruit. They were a different category. So we know the method. So the results, what should have happened here? Results should start high and kind of go down and down and down. And then on the last trial, what should we get? And what did we get here? How was her recall on the very last trial? It was much better. So you know the method, you know the result. Next, we need to go into the meaning. Why? Why did memory go down from trials 1 through 4? Why did memory go down? That was predicted. Any thoughts? Kate?
Could it be the interference because all of the words were in the same category?
Yeah, they were all occupations. So you were trying to learn something new, and the old information was interfering with you learning new information. Was that going on for you? Were you getting a little confused because, wait, it was actually the word was assistant in one that you didn't quite get right. But the words were all in the same category. So that is called proactive interference. You try to learn something new, and old information interferes with you learning new information. This was an experiment done by, I think we've talked about a guy named Wickens in this class, but this was a different Wickens, W-I-C-K-E-N. Wickens actually showed proactive interference in his experiment. And on the very last trial, how did Madison do?
Very well.
Very well. Why?
It was a new category.
It was a new category. We call this release from proactive interference. So proactive interference is where you're trying to learn something new and old information gets in the way. So I've done demonstrations with just about everybody in the class to this point. And now I have something that I want to do for you. So we know what proactive interference is. But the other thing I want to do for you is I actually have something I've kind of memorized from a little bit of time ago. So what I'd like you to do is listen to what I'm trying to recall here and see if you can figure out what it is, and then we'll talk about some of the processing going on. Okay? See if I can do it. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, fall, or resolve itself into a dew. Or had the canon yet not been fixed? Not 2 months dead, nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king that was to this Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother that he might not between the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Must I remember why? Okay, well that was pretty weird, wasn't it? I didn't do the first part quite as well as I wanted to. Does anybody know what I was doing there? This is the first time I've actually done this at Mary Baldwin University, but it might actually be kind of relevant to Mary Baldwin University. What is Mary Baldwin University famous for? What department is very big? What do they do a lot of? Do they do any plays around here? What kind of plays do they do around here? Shakespeare! Did that sound a little Shakespearean? Anybody have any favorite tragedies? Anybody familiar with Hamlet? Hamlet's second soliloquy. Hamlet's second monologue, if you want to write it down. And all the tragedies, what are they busy pondering? Whether or not they want to kill themselves or not. How many people have seen or read Hamlet before? So I was able to, in 1984, I was asked for a test. Have you been asked to recall a monologue, a soliloquy for a test? Have you guys taken, do they do that in English classes here? No, not so much. Nay, not so much, not too. Okay. So the question is, was I able to recall most of this monologue, the soliloquy here? I was. I was able to go back. I didn't do as well on the first part as I was hoping. The question is, so Dr. Tausman, you want to write for your notes, was able to go back from 1984 when I was at Ohio State and recall information on a soliloquy from 1984. The question is, how was I able to do that? What was going on for me there? How come, we're 32 years later or something like that, 33 years later, how come I'm able to recall that monologue now? Have you guys ever had to memorize a monologue? Does it stay in there for 33 years? No. How many people are 33? Does it stay in there for 5 years? Nope. There was another one from, Macbeth, about candles going out or something. So the question is, why was I able to recall that one so well? If you're actually, before we get into that, if you're asked to recall something from the past, usually people can't do that. Why? If I asked you to recall something from a month ago, Daisha, would you be able to?
Can't remember things from last night,
Probably not. What happens? How come you can't recall things? Hannah, how come you can't recall things from the past? What happens?
Well, what you were doing is you were singing, and when you sing things, they're more solidified, I guess.
They're more solidified, but usually what happens? You learn something on the first day of class, and then you're given a test on day 6. Do you recall it? No. Why not?
There's repetition.
Well, there's new information coming in. New information is coming into the system, which wrecks your ability to retrieve the old information. Is that called proactive interference? Retroactive interference. Usually, if you're asked to recall something from the past, retroactive interference prevents that. So we have proactive interference and we have retroactive interference. Usually people can't recall things from the past because new information gets in the way. Does this happen to people? So we have recall deficits, proactive and retroactive interference. Lack of an output cue. Can anybody name the Great Lakes? What if I said the word homes to you? Homes. H would stand for what? What if I wanted to know the colors of the spectrum? People familiar with Roy G. Biv? So usually we can't recall something from long-term memory now we're talking about, where the capacity in long-term memory is infinite. My brain is full. No, you can store stuff in there, but many times we have proactive and retroactive interference. Many times there's a lack of an output cue. It's all in there, we just can't access it. Was I able to access a 10th grade biology memory? Yeah, how was I able to do that? They raised their hands in a diagonal, and all of a sudden, boom, there it was. So an output cue. Sometimes you can't remember things because when you go to a class, it's presented in kind of not a very good fashion, kind of garbage in, garbage out kind of way. So if there's no organization when it's presented to you, it's going to be hard to recall it. So lack of input organization and a lack of processing. Many times you just don't really process things too much. You just kind of hear them. They kind of in one ear, out the other. Short-term memory kind of comes and goes. Does this happen to people? So these are all the reasons why we have long-term memory recall deficits. Recall deficits. And that's actually why in the middle of the serial position experiment, we have both proactive and retroactive interference going on there. So the question is, as we kind of get towards the end of the class, how do we improve it? Many times, how did you improve your memory for knowing those first few items of the list? Repetition. That's called maintenance rehearsal. Maintenance rehearsal. You just say something over and over again. Do people do this? To memorize the phone number, you just say it over and over again. That's called repetition or maintenance rehearsal. Then we have the more elaborative approaches. Mnemonics. What does home stand for? H is for what, Great Lake? Anybody? Huron? O is for... Should we go with Roy G. Biv? Okay, Roy G. Biv, help me out here. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. That's an output cue. You're given an output cue. So you can have output cues given to you. We have mnemonics. The method of loci, where you basically put words at particular spots, locations. The peg word, where you kind of say 1 is a bun, 2 is a shoe. And then kind of, I put it in both categories, but we'll kind of consider it separate. First letter mnemonic. We just did the first letter mnemonic there. They probably want to substitute that. What I did. Let's talk about my ability to recall Hamlet. What was I up to there? How did my voice sound? Do I have a good singing voice? Do I have a good singing voice? Lily, what would you say? Not in the least. But did I have some rhythm? I was tapping my foot. Did I tell you guys what instrument I played in elementary, junior high, and high school? What instrument do you think I played? The drums. I was a bass drummer. Did I have some rhythm to things? I did. And especially that second part of the soliloquy. Did anybody recognize what song that was to? Not 2 months dead, nay, not so much. 3 blind mice. The first one was actually the itsy bitsy spider in jazz time. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt. So I actually was able to memorize things. to 3 blind mice and the, what is it, itsy bitsy spider or insy bitsy spider? I always forget. I think it's the itsy bitsy spider. In jazz time, do you think that was meaningful to me? Do you think I was going around the Ohio State University showing off to my friends that I could do this kind of nonsense? Would I be that kind of person as an undergrad? Sure I would be. Do you think I was even talking to my Shakespeare teacher about this? Yeah, she was like, what the hell are you doing trying to recall this? Or what the heck are you doing trying to recall this in class? And I would be kind of snapping my fingers trying to recall it for the test. So this is called subjective organization. You make up your own mnemonic. Actually, going back to 10th grade biology class, we had another one there. The itsy bitsy spider climbed up the water spout. Down came that shot put and knocked that sucker out. Out came the insects to eat all the remains, and the itsy bitsy spider will never be the same. That was pretty bizarre, wasn't it? But what am I showing here? Do you think that's the way I remembered it in 10th grade? I'm showing that I'm not having what here? It's important for you guys. I'm not having what kind of interference here? Retroactive interference. You're not having retroactive interference. And the final part, so do you guys have comments or questions about this? Does this make sense? So the reasons we can't recall things many times from long-term memory, if it gets consolidated, that's good, but sometimes it doesn't. We have an infinite capacity in long-term memory, but retroactive interference many times gets in the way. If we have mnemonics, that can be good. Subjective organization can be a good thing. The final thing, which goes back to your study from the other class, how come you were good at one list and not the other? What were the differences between those two lists?
One was organized and the other was random.
One list was organized. If information is presented to you in an organized way, is it a lot easier to recall? It is. So ways to improve memory. This would all fall under. And for the last couple of minutes here, I just want to talk a little more about your write-up. What are you going to be doing for the paper in this class? What sections? The method. Did we talk about that last time? Pretty much. What other section will you talk about? The discussion. What's the first thing you do in a discussion?
What the hypothesis was.
Yeah, you can kind of restate the hypothesis, say that t-test indicated support for the hypothesis, and we, in 3 sentences, what was it, 4 more words for the organized list than the random list. What do you do next? Say again?
Sorry. Strengths and weaknesses.
You could do strengths and weaknesses, but if you actually got what we actually predicted, it would actually be more important to go into literature tie-in. This is based on the Atkinson and Schifrin model of memory, sensory, short-term, and long-term. And it was basically showing, if you wanted to go into some of the background here, the idea is you could talk about short-term and long-term memory, the differences between the two. Be the first part of it, maybe very briefly. Then you could talk about why there are obstacles. And then finally, we found that things were improved, and you could talk about why things were better because they were organized. So we've kind of gone over here a little bit of background. You might want to look up, what I'll need you to do for your discussion is look up maybe 4 or 5 references that are on improving memory, because that's what we were doing here. We were trying to improve memory by having things organized. Does it help you in my class that do I try to present each class in kind of an organized manner? Does that help you? Are my tests memory-based? Not really. They're open note, open books. Do you have other classes where the presentation of information is much more random? Are they memory-based tests that you get in those classes? Does that make it more difficult? So see if you can find maybe 4 or 5 other references in the ones we've talked about here that talk about methods to improve memory. Does this make sense for everybody? So next week when we meet, we're going to talk more about eyewitness memory. Has anybody ever gone into the eyewitness memory thing? We're going to spend most of the class talking about that. What class did you talk about that in?
Just basic psychology.
Basic psychology. We're going to do that. And then class number 4, a week from today, we're going to get into the neurobiology of how people remember things. And then your test will be, 2 weeks or something from today? Something like that. So any comments or questions from the class? All right, that's going to do it. And at the next class, if you bring your textbook, we'll kind of map to some of the things in the book. It'll be another cognitive type of thing. Thank you, and have a good day. Collect the name tag.